Welcome back, children. Today we are going to continue with the last part of the chapter labor. We are going to discuss about labor efficiency. First, let us understand the meaning of labor efficiency. Efficiency of labor means the productive capacity of a laborer. That means how much a laborer is capable of producing. Now, there are certain benefits which an efficient labor usually enjoys. First of all, if a labor is efficient, quite naturally, he will be able to produce more. That means the national output will rise. On the top of that, because of his skills, the quality of the output will also be better. If we think from the perspective of a firm which employs these laborers, it is also beneficial for the firm to employ a skilled labor, because if a skilled laborer is utilized or hired to produce commodities, because of the laborer's skill, few number of laborers can be hired for the job. Even if the salary or the wage paid to the skilled laborers might be more, but because of the lesser number of skilled laborers who can be hired, the amount which is paid will also be less. This has been very nicely explained in the example which is there in your book. They have said that suppose an unskilled laborer is paid 80 rupees to finish a job and 5 laborers are working to do it, then the firm pays a wage of 400 rupees. But when skilled laborers are employed to do the same job, only 2 of the skilled laborers are utilized. But the payment for the skilled laborers have been increased from 80 to 120 rupees. So in that case, the wage bill of the firm becomes only 240. So the firm basically benefits. A continuation of the last point can be, if the skilled laborers are paid more, their average income will be high and their standard of living will also be bettered. On the top of that, because of the skills that they have, a skilled laborer will be able to efficiently use the available resources without creating any wastage. Now, how can labor efficiency be measured? First of all, labor efficiency can be measured by checking out the quantity of output which a laborer can produce. The more the output a laborer produces, the laborer is said to be more efficient. On the top of that, not only the output, rather the quantity, but also the quality of the output is bettered. Plus, the time taken by the skilled laborers to finish or complete a job is much less than what is taken by an unskilled laborer. So, in a nutshell, we can say, if the quality of output is better and if the quantity of output is more and if the time taken by the laborers are less to finish a job or to create a product, definitely the laborers are efficient. Now let's move on to the next part of the chapter, which deals with the determinants of this labor efficiency. The first and the foremost point which we are going to discuss today is the ability and willingness of the workers to work and to learn skills. This depends upon two things. First of all, the health of the laborer, and second, the age group in which the laborer falls. So an efficient laborer is one who is healthy and who has the capacity of working. On the top of that, if the age group of the laborers are between the age of 16 to 60, definitely they will be more efficient. If the age group of the workers are above 60 years, or say as I have mentioned 50 years, I mean in the higher side. The older they are, the more inefficient they are, and the younger they are, that means below the age of 15, they are more inefficient. Next comes the climatic factors. If the climatic factors or the climate is extreme or harsh, it's difficult for the laborers to work. Locational difference. This means suppose a worker or a laborer has grown up in plains. That means flat lands. It is very difficult for people of this sort to go and work and also to stay in hilly regions or in high altitudes and work. That means if there is a locational differences between the place where they are born and brought up and the place where they work, it gets difficult to a certain extent. Next, mental qualities. This is true for every person. The more disciplined a person is, the better know-hows, technical knowledge and skills the person can assimilate. It has to be a disciplined way of learning. He has to be self-sufficient, punctual and disciplined to gain more knowledge. Next, working conditions. Labor efficiency is very much dependent on the working conditions. That means the conditions in which a laborer works. If the laborers are allowed proper holidays, accident benefits, other sorts of facilities like PFs, gratuities, housing rent allowances, subsidized food, they are ready to work better. That means there should be a cordial relationship between the employer and the employees. Then only the efficiency of the laborer increase. Next, we can come across the point of socio-political environment. This particular point has very big impact in the Indian society. The political freedom and social freedom is required for a person to work better. If there are political prejudices in the working environment, it becomes difficult for everybody to be efficient. Next, production technology. The better is the production technology, the more efficient a laborer is. That means he can work even better with his skills with a better and modern technology. Now there are certain causes which leads to a low efficiency of the Indian workers. And the most important point or the most important reason behind the low efficiency of Indian workers is poverty. Economists often come across a term or they explain or they put forth the reason behind incapability of a laborer to work as poverty. Now it is very correct. A person who is poor, he is incapable of having proper health because of the lack of food which he takes, lack of education and lack of training requirements. Now once he is not very much healthy or he is not properly literate or trained, his efficiency is low. So if his efficiency is low, he will definitely not be able to earn higher wages and in turn he will remain poor. This is actually known as the vicious cycle of poverty. This basically goes on unless and until there is a big impetus where health, education and training can be improved to such an extent that low efficiency can be changed to efficiency. Then only the wages will rise and as such poverty can be done away with. Next is the Indian climate, which is very humid and hot almost all throughout the year. This reduces the ability of a laborer to work properly. Another thing which which is seen in India is the wages are not determined by the labor efficiency. The wage laws, which we are going to study in the fifth point, should be in accordance with the efficiency of a laborer. That means the more efficient the laborer is, he should be given with a higher income. But if this particular wage law is not followed, definitely labor efficiency falls. No laborer gets that incentive to work more. One more problem with Indian industries is unionization. The labor wages basically are determined by the bargaining power of the trade unions. Often it is found that it is because of the militant policies of the unions, trade unions, that the wage rates are fixed. So when the laborers know that their wage rates will be fixed without their working efficiently, but just by bargaining of the unions, they loses the incentive of being efficient. Next comes the unemployment problem. Indian workers require special training to be efficient and skilled, but these trainings are costly. On the top of that, there are also inadequate training facilities. Even though the employers are willing to send the workers to training facilities to get trained, the facilities are so limited that maximum workers cannot get trained. So in such a condition, unemployment becomes a problem, and definitely skill is not acquired. Next, low rate of literacy. Literacy is also a very big factor. The general education, the basics are required for a person to acquire the minimum level of training programs. If that rate of literacy is not available within the workers, it becomes difficult for him or her to get a proper training. And the last point which we are going to discuss is poor working conditions. Usually we find that the conditions are unhealthy and poor, and it's not congenial for any person to work. This is basically in the unorganized or informal sectors. They have given example of tannery of West Bengal, but there are many such industries. Even if we look around us, there are so many fireworks factories almost near the place where you near your school. So the places of work, these places where these people work, where they produce the fireworks, those places are very unhealthy and not congenial. It's very dangerous. So if the working conditions are not good enough, efficiency deteriorates. A worker cannot be efficient in such unhealthy conditions. There are certain measures which have been proposed to improve the efficiency of Indian laborer. First of all, eradication of illiteracy. Nothing to explain here. Definitely, if illiteracy can be eradicated or reduced to a huge extent, I can say I can't talk about eradicating illiteracy completely, but if it can be reduced to a huge extent, then definitely labor efficiency will increase. Along with reduction in illiteracy, there should be an increase in training facilities, which definitely has been increased in the last decade. It needs to be increased even more, so that it should be work related trainings, and that would help the workers to get jobs. Next is productivity linked wage. That means the more productive a particular laborer is, he should be given with more wage. Improved working condition, the same thing. The working conditions should be congenial and hygienic for any person to work properly. The fifth point, which I have explained in the unionization part, is also very true. I mean, the trade unions should be made more responsible. Instead of only thinking about the increase of the wages, they should also think about the efficiency of the laborers, which can be utilized in increasing of the production. Often it is seen that union leaders have brawls or quarrels with the management people, and they go on for strikes, which becomes unavoidable in many circumstances. But this is a very responsible, it's very irresponsible on the part of the union leaders. They should be more careful in deciding upon the ways a particular laborer should work, because that actually increases the production. And if production is increased, it is beneficial for not only the firm or the company, but it's also beneficial for the nation, and as such it's also beneficial for the laborer, because their wages can be increased. In turn, their standard of living can be increased, can be bettered. Next, reasonable attitude of the employers. This is also correct. The employers should also abide by legal obligations regarding the payment of all sort of wages and salaries, bonus, provident funds, dues, all sort of to provide all sort of helps like medical help, insurances, accidental benefits, then travel expenses, subsidized food, anything that which benefits the laborers. The employer should take up all the initiatives to give it or provide it to the laborers, so that they can find the working conditions good enough for them to put in more effort and to be more efficient. Only 6 points from this particular part is enough for you to study. Let's move on to the next part of the chapter, where we are going to study, or we have already discussed it. Once more, I'm going to discuss it with you. That is, improved efficiency. How does it benefit the worker? First of all, the worker gets the opportunity to increase his or her income. As I have said, the more efficient a laborer is, definitely his or her income will increase. In turn, with the increase in his or her income, his standard of living will also be improved. The bargaining power of the worker in negotiating the wage rate with an employer also increases. Yes, this is true. If you are efficient, you can ask for more salary, and the work process can be completed in a stipulated time. That means an efficient labor will definitely complete his work or her work in time, and will have enough time to have leisure. Okay, let's come to the last part of the chapter, that is the concept of the human capital. So human beings are human capital, this is correct. But when can a human being become human capital? When that human being becomes efficient or skilled. That means through proper education, through proper training, and with proper health facilities, a human can be made into a human capital. Now, there are certain measures of human capital. That is, average life expectancy at birth. From the statistical data of the average life expectancy at birth, it can be reflected whether the people are having a healthy life or not. That means if the health facilities and the medicines provided in a country is better and good enough, then this average life expectancy at birth is high. So it can be taken that more the births, and definitely that will be later on proving to be more number of people who can be turned into human capital. And the most important part is student enrollment ratio in education institutions. Why? Because a minimum level of education is required to make human beings efficient. Once you are educated, you will definitely be able to take up the proper trainings which will help you to be skilled. So these are the two things which basically measures the human capital. Okay, then what are the contributions of this human capital? As we have already studied, human capital or laborer, they basically increase the national output. Their capacities and their abilities help them to increase the quantity of output in a particular country. Plus, once they're efficient, their earning capacities also increase. As we have already explained, or you have come to know previously, that the skilled laborers can utilize the resources in a much efficient, prudent manner without creating any wastage. And the last, export of knowledge and intellectual property. Yeah, definitely. We are staying in a knowledge economy. So the skilled laborers or the skilled person have the capacity of innovating, creating new methods. Okay, and often these methods are, they come with a patent right or a copyright. So in that case, another country has to buy this, or you can say has to borrow against a certain amount of money. So definitely the knowledge can be exported. So it also is an interesting way of earning money. Differences between labor and capital, we'll go through it. Let's come to the last part of the chapter, that is classification of labor. Labor can be classified into various groups. First, skilled, semi-skilled and unskilled. Skilled is who is completely competent. Okay, that means who is aware of whatever work he or she is doing, he is trained, perfectly trained. You can say, like they've given an example of a motor mechanic. Semi-skilled is the one who have learned the skills of working by a continual process of working in or getting involved in the same work for a long time period. They've given an example of a liftman, or you can say the local electricians who come to your house to fix gadgets, or you can say fix electricity boards and all, because they had been working for a long time in the same field. They gain that efficiency. Even though they are not skilled, they're semi-skilled, they might not have studied or got trained in a particular field of job. And the unskilled are the ones who basically have no training, no proper education at all. They have given an example of a worker digging ponds. The daily wage earners are the unskilled laborers. When we talk about organized and unorganized labor, organized laborers are the ones who work in an organized sector. It can be a government sector, it can be a private sector, but this employees are provided with all the benefits that is supposed to be given to any laborer or worker, like all sort of they get their salaries and wages, plus all sort of benefits which are under the government rules and norms, like the provident funds, the gratuity, you can say, like the subsidized food, the travel allowances, leave travel allowances they can get housing rents, they can also get help for the education of their children. Okay, but an unorganized labor basically are the ones who are not provided with all the benefits. Like they have given the example of helpers in small shops. This form the unorganized workers or laborers. So that's all, children. I'm going to continue with the next chapter in your next class. Go through the chapter. If you get stuck somewhere, if you have any problem, we are going to discuss it in the online classes. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.